Some countries and Formula One go hand in hand. Germany and their various champions, Italy being home to iconic tracks, and of course Ferrari, and the UK being the modern birthplace of the sport. Brazil, France, the list goes on. But one driver came from a place not at all associated with Formula One, and that was Eddie Irvine, the Irish Formula One driver, who at one point came close to achieving Formula One greatness, but couldn't, potentially because of what was going on behind the scenes. Now hold on, keyboard warriors, because there is a technicality to be clarified here. Irvine was technically a British Formula One driver, as he was born and raised in Northern Ireland. Irvine was not, however, the first man from Northern Ireland to race at the top of motorsport. One of these before him was John Watson, a solid driver who, although sadly never took a world championship, would leave the sport with 5 wins and 20 podiums, and a new fan in the form of a young Eddie Irvine. Now this would encourage Irvine to continue looking towards the racing world, as well as his father, who would sometimes race in single-seaters for fun. It would take Irvine until 1983 to begin racing himself. Initially, he had fallen in love with motorbike racing, but his parents saw this as far too dangerous for him to pursue. So instead, Irvine was swayed by his dad and entered Formula Ford. Irvine's father, clearly a passionate racing driver himself, would agree to fund Eddie's racing if he'd work in the scrapyard for free. To Eddie, this deal was fine. It allowed him to follow his passions while maintaining a normal job. So he took the opportunity with open arms. He would secure fastest lap wins and best driver awards. It's a shame they don't have a best crashing into an orphanage award, or me in 2007 would have been... You know what, you know too much. But a crucial moment would arise when the very ethically sound company Marlboro would organize a test, where the fastest driver of the day would get themselves a permanent drive in British Formula 3. The man who put that fastest lap together that day was Irvine. But to say it was all sunshine and rainbows from there would not be the truth. Irvine wouldn't see immediate success in Formula 3, and would only grab 5th in the championship. He was, however, given the opportunity, therefore, to race at the prestigious Macau Grand Prix, a twisty, treacherous street circuit that, if a driver can perform well at, will likely put them in the eyes for a shot at a Formula One seat. Irvine would qualify on pole for the event, but unfortunately was out after just 12 laps. So it wasn't the miracle performance Eddie had hoped for, but it was enough for another Eddie to notice him, this being Eddie Jordan, the man who owned and operated the Jordan Formula One team. Now, Jordan is going to play a huge role in shedding some light on the further mystery of this video, but for now, he'll be crucial in providing Irvine with more lightweight, high-powered metal to throw around stretches of tarmac. That's the, oh god, I gotta meet the word count way of saying race cars. Irvine throughout this time would continue proving himself to Jordan, racing in the likes of Formula 3000 and beating his teammate and other future F1 driver, Heinz Harald Frentzen, and even finish on the podium at Macau when giving it another try. So in 1993, at the penultimate round of the season, Irvine was given his Formula One debut. They always say when you get an opportunity like this, you should make an impact. And like when I spat in a job interviewer's face, I'm not sure if Irvine made the right impact or not. The Jordans were running reasonably well that weekend in Japan, with Barrichello partnering Irvine, and Eddie was running in 6th place, which at the time in Formula One was the final point scoring position. The thing is, Irvine was catching to the car ahead. Unfortunately for him, that car wasn't 5th place and his teammate Barrichello, but instead race leader Ayrton Senna, who'd lapped young Irvine. Now, Ayrton Senna did not take kindly to a Formula One rookie trying to unlap himself past the 3-time champion. And after the race, he had some choice words for Irvine, and by words, I mean a punch, for which Senna received a 2-race suspended ban. I'm sure if you asked Irvine, though, it was totally worth getting hit in the face to score points on F1 debut. The next year would be Irvine's first full year in the sport, and his slightly reckless driving would continue. However, he soon got it under control after an incident with Damon Hill at Portugal saw the FIA threaten to take away his super license. The police did that to me with my driver's license, but it hasn't stopped me from driving. I just keep hearing this strange noise all the time. Anyway, by 1995, he'd got his slightly crash-happy nature under control, and now if he wanted a shot at being being near the top in Formula 1, he'd have to swap to a team that was capable of breaking out the midfield. And Irvine was offered something no Formula 1 driver could ever refuse. Every child who's ever watched racing's dream, a drive with Ferrari. Now, we're gonna skip forward to 1999, after Irvine had been at the team for 3 full seasons. Bear in mind, without actually getting a win, and we're gonna talk about the events of that season as is factually documented. It started how 1998 had ended. Irvine's teammate and definitive main driver, Michael Schumacher, would attempt to beat McLaren's Mika Hakkinen, something he'd been unsuccessful in doing the previous year. Irvine would be there to assist and score consistent points for Ferrari. By the British Grand Prix, Hakkinen was leading the championship. Despite Irvine's efforts near the start of the season and picking up wins, he was in 3rd place, with teammate Schumacher chasing the world title in 2nd. But an event would change the course of the season forever at that race that day. At the Stowe corner, Michael's rear right brake failed, and it sent him flying into the barrier, breaking his right leg. Michael's championship was over. Ferrari now had to prioritize Irvine. He was the only hope left, and he'd started off strong. Although McLaren's Coulthard took the win in Britain, Eddie would finish ahead of Hakkinen in 2nd, with Mika unable to score points that day. Irvine would then go on to win in Austria and Germany, despite his teammate Mika Salo having to sacrifice a maiden win under team orders to continue Irvine's championship hopes. So, post-Germany, Eddie led the championships. Things were looking good for the Northern Irishman. After a podium in Hungary, Irvine announced this would be his last season with Ferrari, before he'd be moving to Jaguar. It's assumed he was tired of playing second fiddle to Schumacher, but he would continue to focus on the opportunity available here. At the European Grand Prix held at the Nürburgring, we got perhaps the biggest blunder to his championship chances. Going into that race, Hakkinen and Irvine were tied on points, after 2 disappointing finishes for Eddie in Belgium and Italy. He was running strong in the race, but was called into the pits to complete a usual stop. However, Ferrari, well, they did a Ferrari. His stop would cost him at least 30 seconds in the race, as the tyres weren't properly prepared, and Eddie finished behind Mika and out of the points. By the end of the year, he'd lost the championship by just 2 points. If this stop hadn't happened and all else stayed the same, he would have won it, as adding that extra 30 seconds puts him ahead of Hakkinen. Now, the next part of the video delves into theory and conspiracy, so take this with a pinch of salt. Ferrari didn't want him to win. The team was handcrafted by Schumacher to be his and bring success with him. And if Irvine was leaving the team at the end of the year, they wouldn't want him to be the first Ferrari champ since Jody Scheckter in 1979. Eddie Jordan seemed to think Schumacher wouldn't allow it either, with Jordan, who we know was close to Irvine, saying in an interview, he, Schumacher, didn't want Ferrari to win a championship with any driver other than himself. I believe that, and Irvine believes that too. So was this pit stop blunder an intentional way to sabotage Eddie's chances? Did Schumacher, who after he had returned and in the last race beat Irvine by 90 seconds, did he want his teammate to lose? And crucially, did Michael sabotage him? Honestly, no. There's too many if, buts, and maybes, and too much contradictory evidence. Schumacher himself said he'd be happy to help Eddie win the championship, and upon his return in Malaysia, let Irvine through to take the win instead. In the final race of the season, sure, Schumacher beat him by 90 seconds, but Hakkinen won the race in front of Michael. Irvine just wasn't on the pace. The pit stop never even took Irvine out of the fight for the championship either. That could easily be blamed on the multiple weak results achieved in France, Belgium, and Italy. Sadly for Eddie, it was just never meant to be, but at least he came close. Subscribe to bring Formula 1 content close to you, and thank you so much for all of the support. Goodbye!